Welcome to episode 2 of the Recharge podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Rob.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Will.
Today we've got some pretty juicy stuff to talk about, some new bikes that have come out, the new Orbea Rise, which we've got in the studio. It looks really good. I've had a few days on that. Nicolai, Saturn and MGUs, like are MGUs going to take over? Some stuff in the industry, some bike brands, Poly, bankruptcy, the state of the industry, and then some other stuff that we might be able to get onto. We'll start on the Orbea Rise. I've had about 3 or 4 days on it. And I think it would be fair to say a few years ago, Orbea really seemed to crack that lightweight market by bringing out a bike with low weight, decent power, decent battery, and really nice looking e-bike that was, fair to say, really popular.
Yeah, I think aesthetics played a big key in it. I think it looked so different at the time, and it was that new development with the Shimano RS motor, which was cool. So it was like a motor that we already know that's now been adapted specifically to suit that purpose. I think aesthetically was great, and I think that it kind of fit that lightweight but not lightweight. It was verging on this mid-weight, maybe where the Bosch SX is probably positioned now. I think it was kind of an early adopter of that, but the new one does look better.
It does look really good. And I've got to say that actually probably the lightweight category was like Specialized really almost invented this lightweight category. Will, you had the SL Levo?
Yeah, I did. I rode it for the launch when it first came out. And that was like the first bike of its kind, pretty much, wasn't it? I think it was, what did they the lightest one was like 17, 18 kg?
I think at the press camp, it was like, they got it to 16.9 or something, like really, really light.
They got it to, but that's like shaving carbon with a fruit peel, with a vegetable peeler. But it's crazy because that was what, 2020?
2020, yeah. So I think that Specialized really were the trendsetters with lightweight, and then Orbea came out in late 2020 with the Rise. And I think that what they did is they captured, they kind of Specialized paved the way. Then Orbea came out with a more powerful, because it was 60 Newton meters versus the Levo SL's 35 Newton meters.
Was it 60 or was it 56?
Yeah. No, it was 60 when it came out. So you could either have the original Levo SL at 35 or the Orbea Rise at 60, and it had, I think, a slightly bigger battery, and the geometry was
the Rise compared to the Specialized.
Yeah, I think it was like only, I think it was a 360 versus a 320, so not a lot, but like if you're looking at it on paper, like lots of us do, you check out bike stats wise, it beat the SL, the Specialized SL.
And this isn't me just talking bad on the SL. The price point was a lot more manageable with Orbea.
Yeah, Specialized bikes are premium price, let's say. And then recently the SL2 came out, and there's been an explosion of lightweights. Like the market has been, it seems to me like every bike brand over the past 6 months has been bringing out a lightweight e-bike, which is great to see.
Is it?
I think so, yeah, man. There's definitely.
Let's not get into this again.
No, I think it's another one for the portfolio. I think there's been some really standout lightweight bikes. Like the Rise is doing something quite different, and I think what people are calling out for, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they want, like we said, you want your cake and eat it. You want your power without losing too much battery life or wattage or Newton meters from your motor. So Orbea have kind of nailed that. I think they're setting themselves apart. There's Mondraker have done the Dune now, which is like a mid-drive, lightweight. So I think there's some quite interesting lightweight bikes that are coming out that are doing things off the grain rather than Specialized, who pioneered it, having your low torque, low battery size, much more aimed at your kind of analog market, I'd say.
Regular pedal bike. So, okay, so here's the thing. The thought with this bike is that there's a couple of different options you can get. You can get it in a 140. You can get it in a long travel version, which is 150 at the rear and a 160 fork. You can get it with 2 different battery sizes. So with a 420 or a 630, and you can get a range extender. The lightest version of it comes in at 16.2 kilos.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
For an 85 Newton meter motor, 16.2 kilos. So if you go back to that original SL, just 2020, 4 years ago, that was 35 Newton meters and a 360 battery, and it weighed around 17 kilos. To come in at 16.2 with a bigger battery and a much more powerful motor, it's quite remarkable.
What is the spec on the lightest model? Because again, are they making up these numbers through spec?
No.
Is it through frame? Is it through battery size? Because again, it's like we're comparing oranges to apples to some degree. You know, talking about a Kenevo SL that's super lightweight with a few different specs, but essentially a lightest weight one, the weight difference coming through spec rather than a battery size or a motor size because it only came with one option. You know, now we're talking, we've got two different battery sizes. So are we comparing a 320 watt hour battery for a 630, whatever it might be? I think, you know, we've talked about the amazing qualities of its power. Let's go about the lightest model comparative to a lightweight specialized Kenevo SL.
So the battery on the lightest model is a 420 watt hour. So
jumped it.
Already that's bigger than what's the Levo SL, still 360.
Yeah.
The what else have we got? The Bosch is 400 watts in their SX.
Yes.
The Fazua is 400 and
I think it's 400 on the dot.
I think check it. I think it might be slightly different. But with this, you can have the option of having the 630 battery, or you can get the one with the smaller battery and the range extender to give you an additional 210. So the battery is pretty big, like comparatively to what else is out there on the market. And what they've managed to do is they've managed to use the newest generation of cells. So they're 5.8 amp hour, 21700 cells, right? Which is used in, it's the highest energy density cell that's available on the market right now, commercially available. And we touched on it in the last episode, but it is cost-wise to a brand around 50% more to purchase these cells, but it gives you around 16% more energy density. So what Orbea are saying is they are now producing these batteries. The 630 watt hour battery is the highest energy density per kilo of any e-bike that is on the market.
Which is crazy because they're not a motor manufacturer. They're not Shimano, they're not Bosch. You know, they are essentially getting their own batteries made as a proprietary thing for their bikes, which is crazy because I think the amount of money they must have poured into that to get that specifically for them rather than doing it through a manufacturer is a really big feat in terms of that movement. But it's also a big investment because does that price get moved onto the customer? Does it filter down?
It's not a cheap bike. It's not, I mean, it's like, I think it starts at the moment at 7,999, right up to the price of the limited model here, which is 11,999.
And this has Fox factory coil on the back. Was it Shimano XT?
This one weighs 25 kilos.
No,
it's 20.1.
Okay.
It's not bad. Was that XL?
XL with a massive 240 dropper post.
Yep.
It's huge.
Which is slammed.
And they weigh quite a lot, those droppers.
Yeah.
It's got a coil on it. It's got max grip tires. So the thing with the bike is it's totally customizable between somebody like Will. If you were building this bike, dream bike,
yep,
and you could choose any spec, how would you build it? Because my build might be like different to what you would make.
I'd probably go that spec right there that we have here.
Would you?
Yeah, probably. I think that long dropper, the coil, the 36. I know you're a big 38 man, an advocate for the 38, but I think when it's a lighter bike like that, like 36 is fine for me, being a lighter rider as well.
What about the battery size? So 630, but would you go for the smaller battery to save like a kilo or whatever?
I think if it depends if I had the range extender. How much does a range extender cost? Do you know?
Probably, I don't know off the top of my head, but I would assume it's around £400. That seems to be like the standard range extender price.
It's 250 watt hours.
210.
210, yeah. I'd say around 300 to 400 if they're doing well price-wise.
It's a tricky decision, isn't it? I think if I had the range extender and that smaller battery, it would be fine for me to do like 3 or 4 hour ride. Well, I'm not sure what the range is with that setup, but
I think that's an interesting point, because we were saying about your weight and how much is too much weight, but 20.1 isn't too much weight for you.
it's a tiny bit heavier than, it's not my ideal, but it's like.
But so have you ridden it or not?
No, I went around the car park. That's all I was allowed.
Because I was going to say, did it feel heavy? Because maybe it's the weight distribution.
No,
maybe it just didn't feel heavy.
This is the funny thing. When I felt it in the car park, I lifted it, didn't I? And I was like, wow, this feels crazy light. And then when we put it on the scales, we were both, well, I was surprised. I don't know if you were surprised as well, Rob, but surprised that it came to 20.1. I thought it was lighter.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be 19 point something, but it is the biggest size. We've already said the dropper. It's got max grip tyre, downhill tyre on the rear.
And that's how
casing.
it came spec.
Yeah, and the thing with Orbea is that you can spec it to your to whatever you want within whatever they kind of range it with on their website. So you can spec it with like a super lightweight build or with their customization. You can even get downhill tires on it. Like not I don't think any other company goes that far. Maybe Propane.
I was going to say Propane, yeah.
Yeah, but there's not many that you can spec air, coil, alloy, carbon rims, whatever tire you want.
Common Sal, do they do that? They do.
They used to do their a la carte menu, and you used to be able to spec it, but they haven't done it in a while. And they've got quite a range of different bikes that you can kind of choose the spec you want to some degree, which is, I guess, is this
similar.
It's a similar offering. Is that if you've got spec differences, that just kind of it reduces the options available for someone to choose from. But then, so the thing that gets me, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here, is one frame essentially that can do all those different things, all those different adjustments, wheel options in terms of purchasing. Does that not dilute the bike itself? You know, you have a bike that's set up with geometry for a certain fork, a certain shock, a certain setup. You're kind of leaving it to the hands of people to be able to go, oh, I'm going to put a downhill front tire on 38s and then a really lightweight air shock on the back, whatever, you know, they might mess up the configuration that then makes that bike not feel as good.
But that's the beautiful part, isn't it? Because we all like different stuff. That's the beauty of it.
That is a good point. I think that what Orbea saw with the original Rise is people were putting bigger shocks on. They were overstroking the shock. They were putting bigger forks on. There's entire communities on E-MTB forums that are showing their custom Rises. So if you think you're an Orbea product manager, you're like, there's a lot of people that are customizing our bike. Why don't we just give them options and
we sell them the parts?
Exactly.
It's about, and again, it kind of gets down to adult Lego, doesn't it? It's kind of like, oh, it's plug and play. You choose the parts you want. And whereas most people would go, oh my God, I don't know if I can put this shock on there. You know, a lot of people don't necessarily know your eye to eye length on a coil or air and whether. I think a lot of people go, oh, is that compatible with that? Can I put a coil in there? Is it going to break my frame? So
will it void the warranty?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. I think if you put your boxes or your Fox 40s, it'll void the warranty, Rob.
Well, interestingly, slightly different subject, but on a tangent, Orbea are racing at Fort William on a Wild with a dual crown.
No way.
Yeah,
downhill.
This by the time this podcast comes out, this will be known. So Martin Mays is racing the downhill World Cup. He's competing in it on an e-bike, no motor or battery, but with a dual crown.
No motor or battery. So, wow,
it's epic.
Good luck, Martin. You may have already won it by now.
How cool is that? But getting back to this bike, this is I think technically it's an amazing piece of technical it's an amazing piece of tech, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like what they've done is getting a big dropper in there, getting that energy density.
They've thought about the best. Yeah, they've thought about the bells and whistles.
Having the 85 Newton meters, basically it's giving people what they want. And I remember when the Rise first came out, I said to them, make a party mode, make an 85 Newton meter. Just it's in the motor already.
Party mode.
Yeah.
Like it.
And we now have a party mode.
Is it the party mode or is it the default mode? And then you've got to tone it down school day kind of mode.
I would always run it in party mode. You've got two profiles on there. Profile 1 and it restricts it. to like 54 Newton meters or something, and profile 2, which is 85. Like, just have it all.
I'm going to ask a question to our regular biker. Would you ride it in party mode or regular mode? Do you want more torque, or is 56 Newton meters enough?
Depends where you're riding, doesn't it? If I'm riding somewhere really where you've got no elevation, then I don't think I need that. But if I'm trying to think of some epic steep climb locations in Wales or somewhere like Cwmcarn, somewhere like that, I think I'd want the power
party mode.
Yeah,
but that's a cool thing, because that also raises the question of, are you likely to flip it on the fly? Rob, can you change through your head unit controller? Can you change party mode to not party mode?
You have to go into the app. So you have to go into the eTune app and change it from profile 1 to 2 or 2 to 1 or whatever. So I guess what you could do is you could tune one of the modes within the profile to
so within
it.
Eco, Trail and Boost, you can tune those as you would normally with the YouTube app, but you've got a choice of peak wattage of 85 and not peak wattage, sorry, peak Newton meters, peak torque at that. Well,
yeah. Why have they done that? Why can't they just have, it would be so sick to have, like in cars where you've got traction control off button, and just have that on the bike somewhere. Like open a little flap like Batman or something.
That's for the next Rise.
Yeah, Rise Gen 3. Yeah.
This is Gen 3, isn't it?
No, this is well, it's kind of Gen 2. I mean, the original
Gen 2 frame design, Gen 3 motor iteration.
I hope it's Gen 2, because that's what I called it in my video.
I was going to say, we just watched. Yeah, maybe it's 2.5 facelift version.
Maybe
we'll call it that. But that raises an interesting point, because it's almost like you have to set it at the beginning of your ride. You're going to set your mode at the beginning of the ride rather than it being something on the fly. So, as we say with most flip chips, you're going to lean to one or the other. I mean, when I've had a bike, the flip chip's there. I normally set and forget. I don't tend to change it a lot.
Yeah.
But that's also quite cool on this one. Is the
You've seen it?
Flip chip. I was going to say, you showed it to me earlier. That's really cool. So, Will, you actually mentioned the flip chip.
It's the best feature, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen that on any other bike, how easy it is and how quick it is to do it.
How do you do it?
You just loosen the bolt with the supplied hex key that comes in the axle. And then, you've done it, Rob. You lift the frame by the saddle and it flips the chip.
So how does that, it's just under tension. How does that work, Rob?
There's a little cam in there. So as you're releasing the tension on the bolt, it frees up a cam. So it just kind of turns around. So if you loosen the bolt with the weight of the bike, it will just drop. And it drops the BB by 8 mil and slackens the head angle by half a degree.
It's quite, 8 mil is quite a big drop.
Yeah, so it takes it from 64.5 to 64.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember the exact stats of the BB. But it's something that you might do. It's the same as flipping. It's not too dissimilar to changing like your shock from closed or like a climb setting. You do need to use a tool to do it, but I actually tried it when I was out riding in Spain. We were riding in Ainsa with some big climbs. I did find in the low setting I was getting a ton of pedal strikes, like loads of pedal strikes.
It's quite a low BB in general.
Yeah, and I put it in the high, and then when I got to the top, I flipped it literally. You know when people say, it won't take long, and you're like, this is taking ages. This doesn't take long at all to change. And I was able to just, pretty much on the fly, change it to the low setting. So, I think what they've had with this is time to refine and finesse the frame, the bike. Every little detail is now better. They've basically rebuilt the entire bike. There are some things that I think could be improved. I still think the geometry, the size-specific geometry needs to be a thing, because in XL, still got a short rear end. 440 mil for an e-bike is quite short. And
a lot of people like that though, Rob. Tight back end, and especially on a trail bike. And it lends itself to having a low BB, because that makes those tight little corners and those little poppy berms. That's what it's aimed at.
A lot of people like size 7 shoes because it fits them. I know that's a really bad analogy, but I find it a little bit too rearward biased on the climbs. The front lifts up too easily. And I found myself having to get my chin over the the stem to really weight the front wheel on like flat corners and berms. So I think I would like to see the rear grow with the frame size, just so it's balanced, because there's no way a rider of a medium bike and a large bike or an XL bike have the same ride experience, because the geometry and the balance is going to be different.
It's true. We were saying earlier, like a medium rider or medium frame size is like your manufacturer's dream. That's where most bike designs kind of start, as your medium frame. And it's interesting because I like a tight back end. I like a short chainstay as short as possible, regardless of size.
Sorry, Adam, to interrupt you, but did you say dream?
Dream. The dream would be. But so it's interesting you should say that, because I found the old Rise a little bit too tight. And tight is a weird description, but I felt it a little bit pitchy forwards or backwards. It was too easy for me to throw the balance point over one way or the other. Maybe I needed a larger size, but I was on paper, size large, reach should have been good. Stack height was really low.
Yeah, it's low on this as well. I kept saying to Will when we were filming, the front feels really low. It's got a 35mm rise bar. I think the stack's like 635, 637, which is on the lower side for an XL bike. A lot of stacks are coming at 350, 360 even.
Head tube's short, isn't it?
Yeah, short head tube. So
I think, but the thing, there's a lot of benefit to having a short head tube on the right geometry. I mean, I use YT Decoy as kind of like my baseline because I used to work there, and that's quite a short head tube, and that was quite good because it almost pushed your position a little bit more forward. So the bike automatically made you want to load the front a little bit more, not too much. It was quite balanced for the most part, but it didn't feel like I used the Canyon Torque as the kind of the opposite to that, which the stack height felt like I was riding a Harley, which loading the front you had to consciously like step over and be on top of. So there's a place and a time for it. But I think on a lightweight trail bike, which is already slightly shorter and tighter, it just puts you into that really easy to throw over the front, easy to go off the back position.
It's a pretty easy fix though, isn't it? You can either just run a crazy high bar, or you could run one of those drop bars like on the road bikes.
Oh, well, drop down, so just reduce the stack by a physical drop bar. Maybe that'll work in Swinley. I don't know if that's going to work in most other places to ride. I'll get berated.
Yeah, no, it is an easy fix. And had I had a spare set, I should say, of 50mm rise bars, I definitely would have been on. But when you ride in XL bikes, I always find the size in some manufacturers do almost try and balance them out with the rear, make the chainstays a bit longer. And I really do appreciate that. But to your point, Adam, there'll be a lot of people that really enjoy the way this rides. I really enjoyed it myself, but I found it a little bit challenging to ride on some of the steeper stuff. And it's almost like the bike's kind of erring on the side of being a full-on enduro bike. So it's kind of encouraging you to do more. And it's like this trail, really, it's a mid-travel trail bike that is massively capable. So that's why when I was riding it, I was like, if this had a 170 fork on a 38, it's already got a coil, it's got downhill tyres, be even more capable. Then I was thinking, well, isn't that just an Orbea Wild? And maybe that's my bike over something like this. So yeah, the lines are blurred, and I think as a manufacturer, you don't want to have too much crossover to confuse people.
For anyone who's listening and can't see this, I'm smirking because it's funny. I just made the point of custom spec. Does it take it out of the bike that it's meant to be? You kind of, if you give someone that ability, give them an inch, they take a mile. It's like, you've been given the option of customizing it. Now they're like, but if I could just push it a bit more and put a bigger fork on there, and you're basically changing the bike. And it's a weird one. It sits really in between that blurred line of trail, where trail used to be like a cheaper, more affordable, everyday option, and then the enduro was the higher spec one. Now you're getting really high-end spec trail bikes that are basically sort of travel enduro bikes, and now you're telling me that Martin Mays is riding a World Cup on a Wild, which isn't the downhill bike. So it's those lines are really blurred, and I don't know if Orbea have done a great job at defining and keeping those lines defined.
Do you know how we unblur the lines? Just everyone have a 200mm travel dual crown.
Right, it's been great doing the podcast, guys. I'll see you later.
The Recharged podcast is sponsored by the Electric Bike Shop, the e-bike specialists. They've been selling e-bikes since 2017 from their first store in Bristol. And since then, they've rapidly grown from that single shop to now 10 stores across the UK, with more planned for 2024. The Electric Bike Shop supply a host of major e-bike brands, plus a ton of parts and accessories in stock. The Electric Bike Shop are highly reviewed by real customers, and they've achieved an excellent status on Trustpilot.com with hundreds of reviews. They offer free UK delivery, highly competitive pricing with price matching. They take part in the Cycle to Work scheme, and they carry literally thousands of e-bikes in stock for quick delivery. They also offer test rides where you can get hands-on with the bike so you can try different sizes. There's really nothing like getting on a bike and trying out the size for real to make sure you get the right bike size for you. So check them out at theelectricbikeshop.co.uk, where you can see the range, or you can even book a test ride direct from their website at one of their 10 nationwide stores. Thanks again to the Electric Bike Shop for sponsoring the Recharged podcast.
Speaking of exciting new bike releases, we have an exciting new bike coming up, don't we?
Yeah.
Actually, it has released already, hasn't it, by the time it's coming out?
Actually released today, and it's a really exciting bike, actually. It's the Nicolai Saturn 16 with the Pinion MGU.
Which as one is the Nicolai Saturn 16 MGU. It's a bit of a mouthful.
We'll just call it the Nicolai Pinion.
There we go.
Easy.
Easy done.
And I really like the look of this bike. It's a 160 with the Pinion MGU with a battery up to 960 watts. What hours? I think.
Is that, that's with a range extender you've got.
No, I think you can spec it with a massive battery.
Damn.
Pinion have really, they've kind of one-upped everyone there, where you've got like 1,000 watt hour without a range extender, and then you can chuck on another two range extenders that take it up to like 1,400 watt hours of battery life. The thing is, though, does that actually translate into, is that something is it going to be comparable to a normal motor distance? Because there's different things going on, and it sounds like a massive number, but it might be quite similar to, say, a 750 watt hour Bosch motor because of the inner workings. Yeah,
I think I really want to try the Pinion MGU properly, and I'm going to be testing this bike really soon, actually, on proper trails. I tried the MGU in Eurobike, I think you did as well, in a car park, and it's not really a proper test. So things I'm really curious about is how it climbs on techie stuff, but also how the bike descends, because with the lack of weight, there's no cassette, there's no derailleur hanging off the back wheel. There's a belt on this Nikolai. They're using the Gates carbon drive belt. How does it actually feel going down the trails, and what does that do for like the unsprung weight at the rear wheel? How does it perform? And the bike looks pretty badass as well. It's got that classic Nikolai. Looks like you could put it in a nuclear bomb and it would still come out and look exactly the same as what it did when it went in, you know?
I think that's what Nikolai's aim was. I think someone at Nikolai hears that, go, yes, we're doing the right thing. Great job, guys. I said it when I saw the Saturn 16 Eurobike, the SX version that wasn't the MGU, and I was like, that's probably my favourite looking Bosch SX bike that we've seen at Eurobike, which is crazy because it's like super slick carbon lightweight builds and all these different things you can put on there, and then Nikolai, it's just like welds, aluminium, here we go, no need to worry, let's just make it look burly. And now they've got the MGU, which is, it makes sense. But like you said on the back, I'm a derailleur, a cassette, it's not actually that much weight, but having ridden one when we were at Eurobike, you do notice the back end feels really noticeably lighter, like really like, I don't know if it's a good thing. I'm just not used to it.
Yeah. The other thing that I really want is a derailleur that doesn't break, because I've got a drawer in here of dead cages from the...
Really?
Yeah, I've got 3 dead cages from the transmission. So the SRAM transmission body, the main part of it, is really strong.
Yeah.
But the cages are quite weak. I've
is this
noticed
the SRAM T-type?
SRAM T-type. And especially on a mullet bike, right? The rear is lower to the ground on a mullet. And if you look how far away the derailleur is from the ground, it's like that. It's really close to the ground. And as soon as you go through like a little V-shaped rock and you don't anticipate that you might scrape the derailleur, line choice, it's quite fragile. So I've broken 3 of them, and it's really frustrating. SRAM are doing cheaper replacements now, which is great. It's like £30 to get a replacement, but it's still something that you have to fix. Whereas this has nothing at the back. So you can just blast through rock gardens and not have a worry about damaging a rear mech.
I don't know. Will, do you break derailleurs a lot?
Bend hangers, but I don't run T-type. But I did definitely notice on that nuke proof that you're lending me, Rob, that the T-type does hang like way lower and would be a problem. Like, I'm so scared, basically. And like what you say with line choice, because I know you're saying, they do a cheap replacement, like 30 quid. But is there not a chance that you could have to replace the whole thing?
Well, there's actually a company that I've seen a post from recently, and they were seen at Sea Otter, I think, that have done, they're basically an aftermarket rebuild kit for a SRAM derailleur, which I thought was really cool. But I rarely break derailleurs.
Have you got the T-type?
I've used it. I haven't had any issues with it. No, again, I'm generally running 29s on the back, I guess. Maybe that's it. But I've never had a worry. And I think the whole marketing drive when that T-type first came out was like, who needs an MGU? You've got a derailleur that's unbreakable, and people stomping on it. And
it's definitely not unbreakable.
No, I know, we've seen it.
And
now.
actually, I went on a press camp where there was at least 2 riders that totally destroyed the said cage that we're talking about. So it's the actual body of the derailleur, the thing that replaces the what's it called, the UDH is really strong. Anyway, I'm looking forward to trying that. I'm going to ride it in Finale. I'm going to ride it through some of the chunky rock gardens, Madonna, those kind of sections out there.
That'd be good.
And the bike looks amazing. For anyone listening, it looks like a really kind of utilitarian, bomb-proof kind of design, and really minimalist out the back with just, they look so different, don't they, out the back?
I think it's cool. And I think when I rode the MGU at Eurobike and it was on a Simplon, it's carbon back end, it's really light. Maybe they've got this weight distribution nailed on the Nicolai, and arguably you're saying about options on the Orbea. Maybe you don't get travel options on this, but you can put whatever racks and anything else, and there's more lugs than you could shake a stick at.
You've seen it? Have you seen they do like a cargo version?
Which is great. I think why not give people
racks as in like the panniers?
Yeah, actual panniers that you can strap onto the back, and you can proper commute with it and put like camera gear.
Yeah. Oh, that is a good point. But then it's a bit risky putting like $5,000 of camera gear on the back of a mountain bike, you think?
No.
Well,
safer than your back.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
What would you rather crash on?
My back.
Would you?
Probably.
Yeah.
Can we get the media squids of the world to come out and say whether a Pinion Gearbox motor Nikolai with panniers would be better than a big Evoc bag?
Is it not just you're a lot less likely to hit it? I feel like if you get close to a lot of stuff when you're riding mountain bikes, like trees, like some trails are really tight, and I feel like if it's on your back, you're going to make sure your body doesn't hit that tree. But the back of your bike, I'm guessing the panniers stick out a bit.
You can get the top mounted panniers.
Can you?
Yeah, you can get like the little, I don't know if you'd fit a camera bag in there, but a little strappy kind of vertical on the top of bike rack. I wouldn't say it's a very good one because it's probably going to swing ferociously left and right as every time you take a corner.
It's probably made for more commuters who want to take stuff into an office rather than like people sending it down a trail.
Send some 30-foot gaps and stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what your commute is. And Rob, that's too short a travel for your commute, isn't it?
It's 160. Do you know what my first question to them was when I sent this through?
What? Go on.
Can it run a bigger fork? Genuinely, I listed 3 questions. Can it run a bigger fork? Can it run a dual crown? And can you overstroke the rear shock? And can it be run mullet?
Did they say
questions. Yes? They said no.
Oh. No to all of them?
No. To be fair, they said, look, you could probably run a 170 fork, and actually you can overstroke the rear shock, but they're not going out and publicising that.
tire buzz the back end if you overstroke the rear shock. You're gonna throw the geometry wildly out, adding 40 mil on top of the front end. So
yeah. But
stop it, Rob. That's all I'm gonna say. Stop trying to make bikes bigger.
I was curious to find out if it's possible. But look, and the reason I asked that is because Nikolai traditionally do long bikes, slack bikes, big travel. They're kind of renowned for that.
The Geometron. That was
Geometron.
Like, I don't know what it's called. Geometron. It's like the pioneer of massive bikes, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was like adjustable. It was completely adjustable, modified. You could change the shock position, all the rest. Yeah, I mean, it is the go-to big, long, beefy, like, I'd say pioneers of maybe geometry as we know it today.
Building bikes that you can actually ride down a real mountain on.
Do we think that with this...
and just smashing down
you can smash through anything on them.
With this MGU bike, we're going to see loads more Nicolais? Because I don't see any. I haven't seen any, like, actually... with my eyes.
But there's still a boutique brand which is smaller in-house production. You know, it's they do everything in-house. It's all there, which is great. But also, you know, we're talking from a UK perspective where Brexit's happened now. They're a small German company that, you know, you're going to add however much just trying to ship them to the UK. So invariably, I understand why you don't see them in the UK. But you do see a lot more of them in Europe.
But didn't we used to see quite a few Geometrons?
Yeah, but that was because of Chris Porter. So Chris Porter, who runs Mojo Suspension, he was a big part. Essentially, it's his bike. He was the one who developed it. So that, and he's based in the Forest of Dean. So there was a lot more of a tie there. But they've now kind of not parted ways, but it's a separate entity.
I think Geometron is like is a Nikolai. It's produced by Nikolai, manufactured by them. But in the UK, it's almost is it exclusively Geometron? So if you're from the UK, you order it and it's a Geometron.
Yeah.
They still sell them now.
Yeah. Fair. But if you're in the rest of Europe, you order it and it's a Nikolai G1, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's just the naming, and I think the brand, like, I think a Geometron actually just says Geometron on the side of it rather than Nikolai G1, but it's essentially the same bike, right?
Yeah. I think that it's the type of bike that I would love to try. Not just that one, but the Nikolai in general. I think that the Geo is really progressive. I love the fact that you can use these, they call them mutators, and you can change the chainstay. Going back to the chainstay thing, you can lengthen the chainstay, you can shorten it, you can change like the layout to allow mullet 29. So you've got all these different options. So for a bike enthusiast, for any
bike Lego fan,
for a bike Lego fan / enthusiast, there's loads of different things that you can do to tinker around, and I love that. I love tinkering around, and I think for me it's always the pursuit of improvement. Like, I'm always trying to find, like, how can I make that corner feel better, or how can I make that descent feel safer, and how can I make it feel more comfortable and confidence inspiring. So that's why I like tinkering. But
it's quite an interesting thing though, because I don't want too much adjustment. Look at the numbers, ride the bike, get used to the feel, and then it's plug and play. I don't want to have to adjust it, do loads of different things to it. Once I've got it set up, that's it nailed. I guess the Saturn 16 or a lot of Nicolais will give you the ability to find that sweet spot, but you're still having to adapt a bike to one way or another. Like you're going to put it to the extremes of what it was intended to do, whilst it was designed to be in the middle. So it's great to have the option. Whether or not it's for everyone, I don't know. But I find it really interesting that that's probably the longest travel MGU bike that's on the market available. Arguably, maybe Simplon have build a kit actually just like Orbea where you can spec it as you please. But we're not seeing super long travel MGUs. We're not seeing Pinion MGU motor gearbox units aimed at bikes with a downhill fork or anything like that. So it leads me to believe that the motor isn't going to be as kind of burly downhill orientated as we might expect it to be.
I have a theory as to why.
Go on then.
Commercial. It's a commercial thing. The key segment that sells the lion's share of bikes is that mid-travel trail bike, kind of 150, 160, maybe 160, 160. As soon as you start getting to this outlier position, the market is narrower. So as you start getting to a 180, 180 or a 190, 190, the potential buyers for that bike are shrinking. So commercially, if I was designing a bike, if I had a bike company and I was designing a bike, I would go as safe as possible, And if my goal is to run a business and sell the most amount of bikes possible, I want the least amount of risk and the best product within this category that's going to sell or have the potential to sell the most amount of bikes.
A 200 mil cross country e-bike sounds like what you want. Super safe for everyone.
That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that is what I would buy, but there's not many people out there like me.
But I'd argue to say that the market for e-bikes, especially full powered ones, have all started around 170 or 160 and above because of that. Oh, why would having more travel, you lose efficiency? It doesn't really matter. You've got a motor. So, and from what you've just said, I would have gone, oh, cool, put it as a 170, 180 mil bike. But
it's
we haven't
safer
seen
to
any.
go. No, it's safer to go like 160. That's still long travel. Look at probably the most popular selling e-bikes in the world are Specialized Levo,
That's 150, 160?
Trek Rail,
150, 150?
150, 160.
Yeah.
Maybe those two. Maybe Canyon Spectral.
160, 160.
So
Yeah.
I think commercially it's the right call. Is it the best that they could do to make that bike the highest performance? Probably not, but maybe that's something that we'll see a Saturn 32 or something, in
Throw
the future.
another number in there. But that being said, though, it's not. The brands have the option to spec it with whatever. You don't have to just have one Pinion MGU bike in your range. Oh, we've got a short travel Pinion MGU bike and we've got a long travel one. But I wonder if there's stipulation from Pinion to say the intention isn't to run it on more than 160. I know that with Shimano and Bosch, you have to actually set in the settings when you're programming the motor the angle at which it sits. So maybe there's something to do with that in terms of, I don't know, but it's surprising that there isn't a longer travel and there is a shorter travel option, but a much longer travel option available in the MGUs, and why.
I am really excited about the future for MGUs. I think it is the future. And I'd be really surprised if people like Bosch are not working on something like that right now. SRAM, maybe not, because they have a massive drivetrain and derailleur business. But Bosch, Bafang, maybe.
Yeah.
Fazua,
Yeah.
TQ, maybe.
I mean, for Zurich, it kind of makes sense because they're already doing something different with their motor tech in terms of the battery includes the motor on it and it engages into the bottom bracket shell essentially. Shimano, do you reckon?
Again, they've still got a massive, and I don't see Shimano blazing a trail out there in terms of innovation. Maybe there's some stuff they're working on in the background. Will, if you could have a choice between a MGU e-bike or a regular old school, what do we call them? Like regular old school geared bike?
The old drive chain bike. The old cassette and chain.
The chain and cogs out back.
Why did you go northern?
Is that a drive shaft bike?
That was my 1920s voice.
MGU, 100%. Well, obviously it's not really, has it been it hasn't been tested that much. It's not like as tried and true as but when we say tried and true with the normal drivetrain, they do still break all the time. And it's too expensive to replace them, and
they're a hassle.
Yeah.
I'm going to also throw a con in there for the belt drive. If you get stone in there, there's a good chance it can snap, and a belt drive's not an easy thing to replace. You also have to have a break in the frame in order to put a replacement belt drive in. It's not a breakable piece. You have to slide it on.
When you say there's a high potential it could snap.
Not a high potential. I just said there is a potential.
But that's no different to a twig in your derailleur.
Yeah.
Like
No, but like because of how it's tensioned, arguably I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue on the Saturn because it has that belt tensioner.
Yeah,
that's what we call it, belt tensioner. But I know classically on like a hardtail, something that has a fixed back end, if you get a stone into that carbon drive, there's not a lot of room for tolerance in terms of the space, so it can snap. The problem is if you snap, it's not an easy fix on the side of the trail. We all know how derailleurs, cassettes, chains all work.
But some motorcycles use that Gates carbon drive, don't they?
They do, yeah.
So maybe, I don't know. The proof will be in people owning them and riding them and yeah.
I'm just throwing a devil's advocate, con
You're liking
there.
the devil's advocate at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah.
But we're not, the positives, I think, outweigh the negatives. Think about the ride noise, your trail experience. Like, you're not going to have that some rear mechs like SRAM's cheap options like NX and SX, they're so loud on the trail you can't even hear like your tires on the ground or anything. Whereas obviously I've never ridden an MGU, but isn't one of the selling points that it's like supposedly really quiet.
And funny enough, my mate's got a Dior rear mech and the clutch has gone it, and he's only had it for about 3 months. And it's not to say that's a fault with all of them, but a clutch can go. A clutch probably isn't going to go on an MGU. It's all internal. It's it's a planetary hub gear system essentially inside there. So
then there's lots of other benefits to the MGU as well. Like just yesterday, the chain came off the rise, didn't it? And it got caught in between the spokes and the cassette. And that's a really annoying thing to have to deal with.
Yeah.
Standard, we're used to it. Chains come off. This doesn't have that. It's not going to have that problem, I don't think, because it's not skipping over different derailleurs and different cogs. On the rear. But the other thing is, it can change gears stationary, so you can change from gear 1 to 12, like just stationary.
Just sat there doing nothing.
Sat there.
That's sick.
I'll explain the reason why, because it's quite cool in how it works. If you're right for me
Go
to
on,
do it. Yeah. So I don't know if you ever... Come on.
I'm ready.
Over. Let's everyone huddle around. So I don't know if you ever dealt with the Sturmy Archer rear hub, like the old school like shopper bikes from the 40s.
No.
Oh,
okay. like a roll-off.
Yeah, like a roll-off hub. But kind of. They work on a different system. But essentially it's like a pin that pushes through and there's different gears that are all around each other. And they ramp up depending on which position you're in. So which kind of rotation you choose to go for. But the interesting thing about it is the way it works is like a pin that engages, like a car, essentially gearbox, where it engages into different points. And so if you're stationary, it's just moving a pin. It needs to be shifted stationary or out of load classically. But because you've got this new electronic shift, it says you can shift and load. And what it does is as you're spinning around the cranks and it finds that point where it needs to shift, it essentially disengages the gears for that split second while you're still pedaling and re-engages at the point you can shift. So it wants you to shift stationary. That's what it's intended to do. Classically on a hub gear system, you have to stop pedaling, shift, and then re-engage.
Yeah.
But because it's got the e-bike side of things, it does it all for you on the fly, and it's great. I like it.
That's so cool. Hence the name Pinion.
Oh, filet pignon.
But on my test that was only in the car park at Eurobike, you slow to a stop and you can pre-select the gear that it puts the gearbox in. So whenever you start riding again, it's always in gear 3 or 4 or whatever you choose. Which on the trail, when you stop, you're normally in gear. If you're sending it down a trail and you stop for some reason, I don't know, whatever, you get lost or something, you're normally in gear like 10 or something like that on the back, one of the smaller cogs. And you have to do that thing where you lift up the rear, spin it round, click through. Very minor annoyance.
It's not that arduous, but
it's not arduous at all. But this will just go beep, 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 and shift into the gear. So you're always ready. And it's going to free shift for you, so it will match your cadence to the speed you're doing. So there's many positive things that this offers.
That's not a positive.
Is that
what you don't think?
No, it's like the auto shift, right?
So you've got auto shift on the SRAM. What's your experience like on that?
No, I don't like it. I don't think it can't predict stuff that you're coming to. If you're coming to a massive climb and you're picking up speed to try and get some speed up the climb, it will shift for you to
be in a harder gear.
So then it's like, well, I need an easier gear for this.
It can't see what's coming up, right?
Exactly,
it's only reactive, which is the same as this. It's never going to be, until there's AI and maps and everything built in, it's always going to be reactive on what's actually happening in the moment. And I share that experience with you on the SRAM auto shift. I found it good for just cruising along on fire roads, like get into the top of a hill. You'd never have to think about changing gear, but I found it sometimes more of a hindrance going down a trail because it would do exactly what you said. You get to the bottom, or you get to a fast bit, there's a little crest that you need to climb, and it's gone into a harder gear. It's basically done the opposite of what you want.
I was going to ask Will if that was him overthinking it, but then you've kind of just agreed with him and say, you've said when you don't think about it, it's great. The reason I say that is because I liken it to flight attendant, so the wireless suspension system from SRAM, which was, it can't predict. It can't predict what's coming up. It can't predict what I'm going to do. But if you stop thinking about it, it was fine. But it was like, oh, just a simple thing of popping off a curb. It's locked out, or I'm riding on the flats. I go to pop out, I compress, it doesn't compress with me, and then releases after I take off, which again, it's reactionary, so it can't predict ahead of it. But that's where the technology needed to be.
Is that not a problem which is more needed to be solved than the auto shift though? I feel like with the suspension, you can't adjust your compression on when you're riding down, but you can so easily shift gears.
Yeah.
It's something that, and we're so used to doing it now, the muscle memory of we know exactly what we're doing, and you can judge it better yourself.
Yeah, because you can just use the flight attendant controller as a digital lockout or compression adjustment, should I say, not a lockout. So you could do that, which
I just think the auto shift's just unnecessary. It's just not a problem that needs to be fixed, I don't think.
Did you just turn it off completely?
Yeah, I just
did you use it at all?
I tested it. I tried it, and I just hated it.
I think the consensus is really, because the general consensus is, I think I agree, is that we've all used derailleurs for so long, and how people use them is some degree personal. I mean, you're not going to climb up the biggest hill in the hardest gear. You have to be in the right gear, but how you set yourself up for it. I'm terrible with having my cranks in the wrong place and crank striking just because I haven't thought about a technical climb ahead of it. But most people will probably think about it. You need to be in the right gear. I need to set myself up this way. Having auto shift, yeah, like you said, you don't know where you're going to suddenly pop up or find a rock or go somewhere off the straight line path that's going up. So yeah, until it can read your mind.
I think as a performance tool, it's not there yet. For just like an everyday ease of plodding down, commuting, all that stuff, it definitely offers benefits. But as a performance enhancer out on the trails, it's from our experience anyway, it's not quite there yet. So yeah, I'm super intrigued getting back to the MGU to try it out and experience the auto shift, because it's going to be working a slightly different way, no doubt, to SRAM's auto shift. The Orbea Rise has auto shift on it as well. The
Shimano auto shift.
Shimano Di2 top end version, and I turned it off because, for what you're saying, it was just unpredictable. So yeah,
is there much difference between the Shimano and the SRAM in your eyes?
Honestly, I didn't want to test that out, and I just it kept doing it. There were a couple of times where the free shift was quite good, or it matched my kind of cadence with like the pedal, matched the speed. So when I picked up the pedals, it was in the right gear. But I just wanted to control it myself.
Is that your first experience with Di2 auto shift?
I did try it once on the Orbea Rise, like a prototype, when I was out there a year or so ago. But yeah, this was my first like proper trail ride with it, and it actually, funnily enough, defaulted. The bike comes with it off, so I wonder if Orbea are like, well, let's just have it off by default.
It's funny, I think, free shift, incredible. Everyone seems to be completely sold on it. That's great. Spinning chainring, awesome. But then, yeah, I mean, interestingly, the decoy, the YT decoy that came out with EP801 doesn't allow for it. You can't even change the settings to allow auto shift. Free shift.
Why is that?
I don't know. I suspect that it's probably Frank in the R&D department going, let's not include this because it's not there yet. We don't want to put our hard-hitting, beefy kind of enduro E-MTB into something that's kind of aimed at your kind of trail, maybe like a little bit more of your everyday riders, where I guess YT's position is we're appealing to shredders. Let's put something that actually works on the bike and not something that's kind of gonna reduce someone's ability to ride it as they want to.
Yeah. So I think the MGU, there's a few factors or a few kind of benefits to it. There's all the auto shift stuff that benefit, maybe not interested in nonetheless. The fact that there's no derailleur, there's no cassette, there's no traditional chain, there's less maintenance. It only needs an oil change once every 10,000 miles, or 10,000 kilometers, which is like a 10-minute job. So the maintenance is really low. Is it ready for prime time? That's what I want to find out. Is it going to give the same motor performance as the top end motors, like the Bosch, the EP801? Is it going to give that same feeling of performance? Or is it still just a concept that's not quite ready on a premium e-mountain bike?
Define performance. What is it? What is you're going to be looking out for when you ride it? Power output, efficiency. I mean, even gear ratios.
Yeah.
Because it's not as.
So for me, I'm looking for instant performance as soon as you put the pedals down. So, like on my benchmark is my personal preference is the Bosch race motor. You put your pedal down and it goes, it takes off. It's instant engagement. It's got nice overruns. So when you stop pedaling, not just the Bosch race motor, but the Bosch CX Gen 4.
I was going to say, because if you're saying just the race motor, that's a limited edition. Your benchmark is a limited edition motor.
That's just got a couple of extra features. But the Bosch Performance CX has punchiness. It has predictability. It has a nice amount of overrun. It's very, very sensitive. The torque sensors in the motor are fantastic. They're very, very sensitive to what your pedals or how much input you're actually putting through the pedals. So that's my benchmark of a high performance e-bike motor. So I hope the Pinion can get close to those features like as soon as possible. A lot of that is only software. I say only software. Software's not easy. So a lot of that is software and development, overrun, like torque sensor, like that kind of technology, and the software behind that is quite important.
Like, did you try the Fazua Ride 60 after it had that update? And it was quite a big update.
Yeah,
night and day in terms of the motor feel.
Software, right?
Yeah, really. One took a little. Like the initial one was a bit more build up, a bit more kind of progressive. You did the update and it was like instant engagement. It's like someone put a new motor in there. So software it shouldn't be overlooked. It's a big factor. It's like you might have the hardware, but you choose for it to build up slowly, or you choose for it to act in a way because you're trying to preempt what people want.
Yeah. I mean, when the Bosch first came out, it was, I think they capped it to 75 Newton meters when the Gen 4 came out, and they left it like 6 months or so. And then they put a software update in it to unlock the full 85 Newton meters, which was great. So yeah, the Pinion MGU, is it the thing that everyone's waiting for? I think it's the type of thing that already sells itself. Like most riders are like, motor, gearbox, all in one. Yeah, why not? Sign me up.
6 years ago, when I was working in the trade in e-bikes, I was working for an e-bike manufacturer, or distributor, I should say. It was always like, where's the technology going to go? Well, you've got a big, great, clunky thing that has like all the gubbins to be able to give you power. Why not just put everything in there? Like, it seems like a no-brainer, and it feels like there is a bit of resistance to some degree with the MGU. Like, change. I just don't want change. I'm so used to this system. I know, it's familiarity. You know how derailleur and a cassette and chain works. Whilst if you go to an MGU, people are just like fear of the unknown. I
think people are really open to it, actually.
Oh, no, I think they are.
But like kind of really curious about it and would, if it ticked those boxes of like the performance, I think people would be like, I want that on my next bike.
But the go-to markets, it's 10K. You're starting at £9,000 or 9,000 euros or 10,000 euros and above. Dipping your toe isn't that easy on a price point like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask on the price. Is that for the... What build was that
Pretty much all... Well, I think most MGU bikes I've seen online have started at 10K.
Yeah.
And I suspect that's just because of the high price point of the battery and the motor. So it's not necessarily a spec around it. They've just got to position themselves like that. Or maybe Pinion have said, we're looking for a premium bike point price, spec the bikes starting from around what you'd expect on 9K.
No, they're not. They're so looking at the price here, there's a couple of things that stand out that might be red flags for people. First of all, is the price. It is with a 720 battery, it's €10,999, and then it's 11,199 for the 960. So it's an expensive bike, and then the weight is 26.9 kilos, which means in an XL it's going to be 27 easily. So
it's heavy, isn't it?
It's a big unit.
But start putting numbers like 1,000 watt hours and a battery,
kilowatt of battery.
Yeah, and like you start putting those numbers on, people aren't looking for this bike for a lightweight. I think a lot of it is positioned at like your trekking kind of adventure bike market. A lot of the bikes I'm looking at, Simplon and Flyer, and a lot of them are spec with like a bike rack and a kickstand, which are like full suspension bike. But that's where the evolution is, like a shorter travel kind of adventure full suspension bike where you don't worry about efficiency through having a full suspension bike because you've got the motor in there. I think it's interesting to see how it will evolve and to see where it is. I don't think it's there yet, personally. From riding on at Eurobike, the shift has there's a clunky point. There's a couple of clunky points where it doesn't quite shift as smoothly.
Between 4 and 5 and 8 and 9, isn't it? It's where it's doing like the double pinion shift.
The double pinion shift, the pinion. And then you've got, the gear ratios do vary a little bit. It's not as succinct to say like a 12-speed Shimano drivetrain where you've got X amount of tooth between each jump. It's quite predictable. With pinion, it's like maybe small shift. Oh, well, then a bigger shift after that. So, yeah, I just don't know when it will be normal.
I think it takes the likes of Pinion to really innovate and be bold and go out there with this product. And there's definite consumer interest in it. Most of my mates are super interested in this technology. And for me, it is the way forward. It is the way forward. Whether it's Pinion, Bosch, Shimano, SRAM, whoever does it, I think it's great to see this kind of innovation. And look, there's people riding Gearbox bikes on the World Cup downhill circuit now, isn't there? Like, it's not a motor, but isn't that zeroed bike?
Zero have always been Pinion Gearbox from the get-go, and that, I think it's G3. Yeah, incredible. Super lightweight, looks amazing, really sleek design. You can do things a lot more differently with the frame design when you haven't got a derailleur system on there. I think it's here to stay. I just don't know which iteration will become the every other bike at your trail centre kind of iteration.
Maybe the MGU2 is the one that we're waiting for.
Maybe they might miss it out because of a tongue twister. MGU2.
I'm super excited. So I will be doing a ride on this bike really soon, and yeah, can't wait to test it out. Actually ride the Pinion. I've been waiting a year to properly ride it on a trail, and it's not been out on that many bikes since we saw it at Eurobike, is it? So
I was surprised at how quick they were turning around. We saw them at Eurobike in June, July.
Yeah.
And then there was some scope to be launched in January.
Okay.
Because I think there was a lot of great technology. We've seen it at Eurobike. Well, when are actually going to see it on a bike? And they turned it around quite quickly. I think that was Bulls and Simplon who were the first to get it out there. But having a look on their website, almost all their bikes are trekking bikes set up on that. Even the full suspension bikes have a rear rack option available, including the Nikolai. So interesting.
So watch your space for more content on the MGU Pinion Saturn 16. Nikolai.
Yeah, I think and I think it's changing the e-bike market, because I think what we're finding is it's essentially a bike that's based around a motor rather than the motor changing. Don't get much option, and I think that quite leads us on to the next topic quite well, which is, will e-bikes save the MTB industry?
I think they already have, haven't they?
Well, it's another thing to change. It's another cost. It's another USP for a company to add into their lineup,
When I first started my channel, there was not many companies doing e-bikes. I remember going to the very first YT e-bike launch, the Decoy, back in whenever you tell me, you worked.
2019.
2019,
yeah.
Right? The very first one. And everyone was like, what, YT launching an e-bike? That video did so well because it was so out there, really. There was Specialized, maybe a couple of other brands, Trek were probably doing one, but nothing that was I would say a gravity oriented electric bike. Well,
and nothing without those external batteries at that time.
Yeah.
Just going to say that my first e-bike video on my YouTube channel was from 2015.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a Cube stereo e-bike, 140, 150, I think.
Will, you were there before all of us.
I was the true pint. I'm the true
OG.
Will rides the MTB.
Will rides.
Change the channel name.
Will Road EMTB.
Yeah.
Hey, move over, Rob Dream Man.
Yeah.
So
Will's taken
tell
over.
us more about that bike then.
It was a long time ago. My early onset dementia's kicking in. It was fully proto, I think, at that point.
Hold on, did you ride for Cube?
You're asking me these questions if you don't already know. It's good.
I don't know.
Yeah, one year for Cube in 2015, and one of the guys came from Germany. I think he came from Germany. Drove down with 2 Cube e-bikes, and we sessioned in the Surrey Hills, and they were fully proto, raw, no paint on them, anything. And I was thinking, what is this thing? It's so heavy. But it was so much fun. It was like the most fun I'd ever had on a bike, and I burnt like 0 calories. So it was like the dream.
Must have been like the original Cube stereo, like a prototype Cube stereo or something. Did it have an external battery?
No.
It was in the frame.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I can.
Really?
If you've got a photo, dig it out and we'll put it on the podcast.
I've got the whole video on my YouTube channel. It's still on there.
Ah, what's your YouTube channel?
No, we don't. Don't worry about it.
Will Greenfield 1.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, wow, that's super cool. But so will e-bikes save the mountain bike industry? I think they probably arguably have. Like the sales of, you worked at YT, right? You probably can't share some sensitive data, but how many e-bikes did you sell compared to a regular pedal bike?
Oh, it was more than 50%, hands down. I mean, so I used to work in the YT mill, Surrey Hills, and looked after the European mill as well in Germany. And yeah, even Germany was less so, but it was probably 60-40.
In Germany or the UK?
In the UK. Oh, I'd even say more than that.
And that was with just one e-bike, the Decoy.
Here you go. I've actually got numbers for you that I can share. So I used to run the demo setup and all the rest of it. So for every single Jeffsy demo ride we would have, there would be 8 Decoy rides. And that was the next most popular bike in the demo lineup. So we'd have 8 Decoy rides and then 1 Jeffsy and then another 3 more Decoy rides and maybe 1 Capra. So it was massively outweighed to that. And it would be the case that, if they sold majority e-bikes, then I don't think the business would continue to go if they dropped some of the other ones out of the lineup. It's become the saving grace for a lot of companies at this point in time. And I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here. When a new analog, a regular pedal bike comes out, I don't care that much. When an e-bike comes out, I'm like, oh, what's this? This is different. And I can't believe it. When the new Jesse came out, I just went,
Well, let's be honest, right? How much can you actually do to a regular pedal bike these days? If you whittle it down to what it actually is, it's 2 triangles, right? I know it's really simplifying things, but it's a front triangle and a rear triangle with parts from other brands. Like, it's way more complex than that. I'm really simplifying it. But with an e-bike, there's a bit more to it. There's different types of tech that kind of get thrown into it. There's more innovation to be had. Like, look at the Orbea. They're using different battery cells. They're using different batteries. There's more things that are fascinating about that bike than their Occam that came out. And in fact, going back to e-bike sales versus regular bike sales, they said at the press camp that they won't, but they could stop selling regular pedal bikes and still have a massively successful business. So they're not going to, but they just said if they did stop selling regular pedal bikes, nothing would happen. They would just invest that money and that research and R&D in different areas.
I just think it's crazy because it's like when the dropper post became normality. You know, when dropper posts became like a thing on mountain bikes, and now could you ride a mountain bike without a dropper post?
Hell no.
Hell no. Rob?
No way.
No way.
Chance.
And it's like that's become such a normal thing in our bike life. And I think that's now a motor. A motor is now, we're getting longer drop posts. There's that next piece of technology. People have done everything they can to a regular pedal bike. And now we need something new for people to tinker with and play with and change and adapt. We've got wireless gears and, it's just another thing, another gimmick, another thing that changes that people have to be able to invest time and thoughts and processes into. And now a motor and a battery and the whole e-bike system gives you so much more to choose from.
Regular pedal bikes have peaked. Wheels, look at
that's going to be the title of the show.
I'm just thinking as human beings, we're going downhill, aren't we? I was thinking, I've regretted my answer about dropper posts, thinking about in my childhood, about when you get to the bottom of a climb and then all you had to do was get your Allen keys out and loosen up your seat collar and put your seat post up. And then you just do the same at the top, put it down. It takes like 20 seconds. And now we're like, can't ride a normal bike, have to have electric assist.
Need 240 drop at least, otherwise I'm not riding.
Yeah.
It puts it into perspective, doesn't it? I think we all rode bikes back in the day that were less than perfect, but actually we had so much fun on them.
Yeah.
So do you need all this tech to have fun? But going back to the topic, like, are e-bikes saving the mountain bike industry? Not for every company, because there's companies that have sadly gone out of business recently.
Yeah.
the market is in a very difficult place. Just in the past year, off the top of my head, you would not have expected a year ago nuke-proof bikes to be no more, or Vitus bikes to be no more.
Nuke-proof Vitus and all the others that sit within that umbrella. Orange, Pole. Who else? There's definitely more.
Wait, Orange are gone?
No, they're back now.
Okay.
They went into administration. And then someone came in and saved the day. I've heard stories of like Planet X getting really close. I've heard stories of lots of brands getting very close to the mark in terms of, unless they have a private investor, they're screwed. Unfortunately, I was made redundant at YT because of the struggles of the bike industry.
Like for like ambassadors or sponsored riders, or even a lot of the professional athletes, like just brands don't have the budget to support them the same way that they did a few years ago even. So it's quite tricky in that space.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's tricky for the riders as well. We even before we've seen a lot of these companies go down, there was Katie Winton who was struggling after Trek Factory to be able to find a new team. And, she's a top 3 enduro rider at the EWS. We've seen Bex Barona being dropped by Yeti. There's a lot of riders who are now there. They can't rely on that being their career.
Danny Hart, I think, had came off of Cube, was it? And then was perhaps unsigned for some time.
Yeah. Even Tom Oisted, this was ahead of all these companies going under, was without a frame sponsor for a year and a half, 2 years.
That's the guy that did like the biggest double back. What was it? The biggest backflip in the world or something?
Yeah.
The longest backflip in the world.
Yeah. And they were still like, no one gave him a frame sponsor.
Yeah,
good on Giant. Giant came out and pulled.
Was that a Darkfest? Yeah.
So again, it's the fact is we're seeing top level riders who can't even consider this a career because they can't. The predictability of whether they're going to be in a job or not isn't necessarily there.
And that all comes down to financials, right? It's bike sales. It's purely, if a brand is not selling enough bikes, there's not enough money in the business to spend on things that are non-essential for company survival.
But something I've noticed, and this is it's really interesting coming from the brand side of things, is over COVID, obviously bike sales peaked. We probably all knew a bike shop that had no bikes left in it. It was basically anything that came in went out. I know that there was distributors basically saying, you can't choose the bikes you get. I will send you a list of bikes that we've checked your sales and we think you'd sell. You just tell us if you want them or you don't. So it's really interesting times, and everyone was like, sweet, we're living in the dream, and whoa, bike sales, and everyone's going to be riding a bike. Cars aren't going to exist, and I don't know, wherever you want to go. But then there was a load of investment from non-bike industry people. So we saw Canyon got investment from LeBron James's company. YT had a private equity company come and invest as a majority. I think the majority shareholder, just under majority. That's all good and well. That's great when things are going great. But these private investors aren't your bike people. They're not the people who've seen the peaks and troughs of how the industry goes. They've invested in this money, and now bike sales are dropping like we've not seen. So rather than it being a case that a private investor, or for example, the majority shareholder owners of say Poly or whatever, going, this is a tough time, let's hanker down and just try and figure out a way to get through this tough patch. These private investors are going, my investment's dropping. I don't care if it's going to get better in 4 years. I'm going to pull out now because I'm not getting my money's worth and what I was expecting, or whatever it might be. So now there's all these companies going, pull out. This is exactly what happened with Nukeproof and Vitus. It was Signa Sports invested in the US, brought them over, and one of their other companies within their portfolio wasn't doing well. So they just went, okay, well, where can we lose our investment? Let's break the clause and pull out of Nukeproof, Vitus, Wiggle, CRC. And the ripple effect it's had on the industry is huge.
That is essentially what happened with Pole as well.
Yep.
There's only so long, I don't know the financials at all, and there's only so long companies can lose half a million or $1 million a year before investors will kind of call it quits. And let's be honest, the cycling industry does not look like in the next year it's going to have a massive boom again. So the risk profile for a bike company is extremely high as an investment. Would you invest money in a bike company right now?
No.
it's a rhetorical question, but like
no, but again, it's
like,
even like you look at all it's not just the bikes, it's the marketing, it's the team, it's the World Cup racing, there's so many other things that you don't think about that come into the cost of a brand. You know, I think a lot of companies are basically sitting in, we've invested this much in stock, essentially in assets we have that much money, but unless it sells, basically we've got zero money. We've got no money.
Which is why we're seeing incredible deals being launched. Like Specialized last week, I got an email and they're doing like up to 50% off bikes. Like I can't remember. I know retailers have traditionally sold Specialized at the end of the season, maybe 30% off, but for Specialized to go direct with 50% off, there was like a Stumpy. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been an S-Works or a Pro. It was 11,000 RRP, and it's straight away 5,500, 50% off. I was like, wow, that's big. And look, we're just getting into 2024 bike season. Really, it's spring, and we're about to get in full swing. And I assume there is some massive stock sitting in warehouses for lots of bike companies. Even Canyon are discounting down the Strive On, which is already
brand new bike.
A new bike, which is a really aggressive price, £5,500 for a top performing e-bike, and that's being discounted.
Which is crazy. And I've heard, and so be in the rumour mill, I'm not going to say names, I'm not going to put fingers on anything, but I have heard that there are companies out there that have actually delayed launches of new bikes because they're sat on so much old stock. That's
100% believable.
Yeah.
Like why would you release a new bike if dealers have still got thousands of bikes in stock? You know, there'd be surely pressure from dealers saying, no, just hold on, we need to shift these right now. If you're a buyer of a bike, amazing. Like Will, you picked up a used Stumpy.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it a little bit in the previous podcast, but yeah, so many banging deals on Pink Bike and Facebook Marketplace and everything, eBay.
What's the spec on that, and how much did you pay for it? You don't have to. I'm going quite personal here.
It's got Fox factory suspension, a carbon frame. It's got an SLX drivetrain, and SLX 4-pot brakes. And I got it for a total of £1,400. And when I bought it, it was still within the 2-year second-hand warranty. So I still had warranty on it. So
and how much that bike RRP for? How much retail for?
Without the Fox factory stuff, because the previous owner put on it was probably about 5k, I think. And then the Fox stuff is another like over £1,000.
Yeah, it's like 1,500 for a set, so 1,300 for a set of 36s in Kashima. Wow,
pretty epic deal. And even with that, with all the sales going on as well, right? Like this is a second-hand bike, but getting 50% off a new bike is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is. I wonder where the market's going to go in the next couple of years, because people are conditioned to pricing. Now you can get a great e-bike. You used to have to spend a lot of money to get a really good e-bike with sorted geometry and sorted components, but now you can get a really good e-bike at really decent prices. So I think it's going to be tough to sell like £10,000 to £12,000 e-bikes again, unless there's something totally amazing about them.
It was a bit of the wiggle effect, I called it, or the chain reaction effect, which is like if you get something that's always discounted on chain reaction, for example, like 510s used to be back in the day, then you're losing they're kind of dampening the value of the brand. You know, you're lowering your price point. So then scaling back up is really difficult. Like it sounds bad. I refuse to spend money on 510s now they're full price because I was just so used to and conditioned to getting them so discounted. Obviously with Adidas coming in and their whole evolution, that's where they changed the price point. So that's their justification. But once you've had such discounted prices, people aren't going to pay the extra. And arguably we're in a point where price point is everything. You know, direct sales brands are more prevalent than ever with Canyon, Rose, YT.
How much would you pay for a bike? If you were buying an e-bike now and you had to spend your own money, like if you don't mind sharing, what would you be comfortable sharing? What would be your ceiling limit?
My ceiling limit, genuinely,
limit, yeah.
with how things are at the moment, £4,000.
Okay.
Which is not a lot. It's not a lot for an e-bike. You struggled 5 years ago to find a mid-drive bike, full suspension bike for £4,000. Now I'm expecting Zeb Ultimates for £4,000. If I get less, then I'm going to be disappointed.
Is that you going new, or is that you going second hand?
Brand new.
Right.
Well, if you were to buy something?
New, I think probably similar to Adam. I think between 4 and 5. Like, but it's a massive investment, isn't it? Like, I think we were speaking about this the other day. Like, that's a huge amount of money that if you're spending that anywhere else, like on any other,
it holds its value. This is
Doesn't
Does
that?
it?
So I just
Do you think it holds its value?
I think to some degree, like.
So you're
I had to sell e-bikes to people, and I had to sell people who were like, I can't afford $8,000. I'm like, buy a bike for $8,000.
you'll get 7.5 back in a year. You'll be fine.
Well, to some degree, over COVID, it was like no brainer. You sell it for more than you get it for. But I'd always say with like, classically, it was like every bike used to devalue like 40 to 45% after the first year, and only Specialized would devalue to only 30% because of the name. Now it's changed with e-bikes. I'd say that e-bikes, over a year, they probably drop 15 to 20%.
I reckon
At the
they're more than
moment,
that.
maybe not.
Yeah,
but,
I think now.
But as standard, that's where I'd say they drop. So essentially, you can always get the next e-bike by just putting a bit extra in and investing. But arguably, if you've already on the ladder, you've got an e-bike now, first-hand prices are coming down so much that if you sell your bike for less than you bought it for, chances are you will be able to buy the same spec, if not better, on a new bike for the price you sold your bike for.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be more depreciation in used e-bikes, because if you can get so the Canyon Strive on Underdog 4,999, I think roughly, at the moment, great spec. How if you bought that in a year's time, what do you think that would be worth? 3.5, maybe 3.5, $3,000.
Let me have a quick look.
If a new one comes out.
That's the thing, is it a new one, new frame?
Yeah.
Because that's a different thing.
Do they have
Strive on
second-hand warranty with Canyon or no? Just first owner?
So here's a good one, a fact for everyone. You get a manufacturer's warranty. So every bike that gets sold brand new from the day it was purchased will have 2 years warranty. That is irrespective of first-hand owner, second-hand owner, third-hand owner. That is a warranty. That is a legally binding thing through the manufacturing of a bike that is as standard.
So that's your statutory rights, basically.
That's like exactly that. It's your statutory rights. Anything that's on top of that is technically a guarantee, which generally means if it's a warranty, it's no charge to yourself. It has to be sorted, replaced within a reasonable amount of time, free of charge. That's warranty. Guarantee essentially goes to, this is something we're putting our stamp on. A lot of the time it will be like, replacement of the frame is free, but labor to do it will be charged, or whatever it might be, because it's a guarantee. It's just what the company puts on top. So yeah, first-hand bike, selling it second-hand within a year, you're saying, and it cost how much brand new? So Strive
£5,000, say £5,000.
Just over your limit, actually.
See, that's the thing, is I would put it at 4.3 and drop it to 3.9 probably for sale.
I'd personally buy a brand new one though. Well, maybe I just think for the change from 4.3 for a used bike, or I could get one for 4.9.
Yeah, but I put the best things on there. Owned by one careful female and mechanic owner.
Does depend how it's cared for though, doesn't it, as well, and how many miles are on the clock for it as well.
And that's the thing that you've actually got a number to. You know, a bike will have an ODO, so you can do that respective of it, rather than trusting matey who's just got his bike and be like, yeah, it's been taken care of massively.
I actually think there's a big opportunity for proper legit used bike sales, like used cars with warranties and things, because I think there's a lot of people that are worried about buying an e-bike when the 2 years warranty is gone, because if the motor goes, it's quite expensive, and it's not easy to just replace yourself. I don't even think you can buy motors. You can't just go to Bosch and say, I need a new motor. It all has to be done via a dealer. So adds more levels of complexity when you start to try and sell bikes out of warranty. But if there are definitely places that are popping up. I've seen online, there are like centers that buy and sell e-bikes now. So yeah, interesting that I think that once the warranty's out, it's way harder to sell a used e-bike.
I'd agree with you, and I wouldn't buy an e-bike secondhand nowadays just because of that. If it goes outside that period, if you're the first-hand owner, brands tend to be a lot more like, if you're outside your warranty, how can we help? Rather than, I'm a second-hand owner, I'm out of the warranty. Like, bye, see you later. You know, unfortunately, it's the reality of what it is.
Yeah.
I think there is actually the European law that's coming in, which is the kind of repair law. You're motor or components have to be repairable within a certain amount of time. That'll change things a lot, because I think the ultimate situation is your motor goes wrong. You don't have a bike. The bike is inert. You can't use it without power on to some degree. And you can't just get them repaired. It's not like I can send it to a guy to get it repaired. And most people are like, I wouldn't want to touch it. Go away from me. Well, what if it's going to explode? Whatever. So a warranty is the biggest safety blanket. It's probably the biggest extra you could have on an e-bike.
I think the root cause of the problem is stuff keeps breaking. Like, it gets to a point where motors last 10 years without, a failure being very rare, then that will be less of a worry. To answer my own question, if anyone's curious, I think my last 2 bikes, I bought the Canyon Strive on, which was $5,599, but I got a slight discount from Canyon, very slight, just from being in the industry. And
you're being in the industry as in being one of the biggest, well, probably the biggest electric mountain bike YouTube channel in the world. Well, yeah, I'm just in the industry.
Yeah, but that's why they only gave him like 50 quid off.
Yeah, a bit stingy on that discount.
Hey, they're a discount brand.
Yeah, that's what
they're not
said.
a discount brand. They're a price point brand.
Yeah, which I'm very thankful for. But I got a small discount on, but it was still a considerable amount of money. And before that, it was a Trek. I bought a Trek rail, and I think that was like just under 6,000. So it's still a lot of money.
9.8.
Yeah,
yeah. Good price for that.
9.8 XT.
Yeah, it's decent. So what was the number?
What would I spend now?
Yeah.
Well, going on my last bikes between 5 and 6K, I think it's still a massive amount of money. But I think at that price point now, you can actually get really good bikes, like really decent stuff that come with sorted geometry, great suspension. The only things that actually need changing are personal preference things like grips and bar height and all that stuff. You can get a pretty sorted bike for...
A lot of people take off those SRAM brakes and put on some Shimano's, but I
I
disagree.
wouldn't do that.
I'm the same with you.
SRAM
but
Mavens, man.
No, I haven't tried them out yet. But it's this kind of leads me to say why are bikes so expensive? Like, if there's any brands who are pricing their bikes that, for example, you look at another direct sales brand or another B2B brand, like a dealer brand, and you look at the comparable things. If they're the same spec, same frame material, everything's pretty much the same, but they're an extra $3,000, why? Because nowadays that's cutting the fat. You're not gonna stand out.
Isn't it the whole? This could be completely wrong, but is it not they're marketing it at different audiences? Like how you have Volkswagen Audi Group, they sell their Golf as a Volkswagen, and then they have their Audi A3, which is pretty much the exact same car, but it's priced higher because it's targeted at a different person. Yeah, is that not the same with bikes? Like you have
Specialized aimed at dentists, and Canyons are aimed at your everyday
not to offend
person.
any dentists here or anything, but isn't it? Is it? Could that be it?
It could be it, but I still am in the mind of like do the research and like it. I think the quality differences between frames nowadays is so little in it for the most part.
So I think there's lots of factors that come into it. Direct to consumer, obviously you don't have massive overheads of shops and paying staff in retail stores, which are huge. Look at Specialized versus YT or Specialized versus Canyon. That you can get a bike that's as good, if not better, than a Specialized at a cheaper price, right? Arguably. Yeah. And then look at somebody like Cube. Cube manufacture millions of bikes. They're a massive bike manufacturer, but they do very little marketing. They have a very small race team, but they can buy in massive volumes and they can sell bikes at a really affordable or more affordable price, I should say.
Super competitive through a dealer as well.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, the Cube 144 that's in the studio that you can't see is just off of camera. That is a super light e-bike that is 18 kilos with a Bosch motor, and the top of the range one, the top end one, is I'm going to say it's 799 or 8999. So
that stumped me because I said there's no such thing as a lightweight cheap e-bike.
The cheapest one, right? So the entry level model or the more affordable model is, I think it's, maybe you can get the site up while I'm talking, but the entry level one is actually lighter than the most expensive one. So the entry level is 17.2 kilos.
What?
Exactly. So it uses a 34 fork. It uses lighter weight components. less burly components, but it's actually lighter than the higher end models, which really bucks the trends, because most bikes, to get the lightest model, you have to spend many thousands of pounds more.
So 5,999 euros to 8,999 euros, which, yeah, okay, maybe it trumps what I said, but 6,000 euros for a lightweight E-MTB.
17 kilo e-bike.
I don't think I could say there's any other 70 kilo e-bikes that would be that
Anywhere
price.
near that.
And that thing is epic as well, no? Like, it just looks, I think it's so underrated, that bike.
Yeah.
It's a very clean looking bike. If anyone hasn't seen it, check it out.
Cube 144 Bosch SX, really clean lines, really nice frame design.
Cool setup, really good spec, nice Magura brakes, T-type derailleur. Like it's a solid spec.
Yeah, but look at some of the brands that have gone under, and some of the, sometimes it, you see comments on bike pricing, and people thinking about brands have been. I see a comment about brands being greedy around bike pricing. I don't necessarily agree with that, because look at the struggles that brands are going through. Bike brands are finding it really tough to sell bikes right now, even at reduced prices. And it's a really, really tough market. And I think maybe during COVID, bike prices went up because of supply and demand. And that's the case in any market. Look at the car market. When supply goes down, the price of cars increases. Look at COVID. Used van prices were astronomical.
It's a valid point. And then all the other things that go into it, people often give YT the bad end of the stick for this, which is you're putting so much money into your launch video or marketing, Specialized are a huge company that they'll do events with it. They'll do your press camps. And again, it's how the sky's the limit in terms of what you want to do, or put people on helicopters or whatever, or go to the top of a mountain, even the Kenevo SL launch with Emma Offelson in Queenstown, and that huge robot mecha thing, like a Godzilla fight.
Yeah.
That was
Epic.
a good video.
That was a cool video. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was a bit like, what does this have to do with e-bikes other than riding a hill? But that kind of thing comes into factor. And I think brands are being more conscious of not going crazy with that. But there's so many other things that do come into play.
And when you look at a bike, how much is actually from the bike company itself? So, the Orbea Rise that we have in the studio, the frame is Orbea, but the suspension is not. The wheels are not. In fact, the wheels are.
Battery
on that
is.
bike. The battery, well, it's made by a third party.
Yeah, but okay, so again, everything's made by a third party.
That maybe bucks a trend slightly, but most bikes, I would say arguably most bikes out there have the majority of the components that the brand does not produce themselves. Most of the components on a bike are third party. So they are at mercy to whatever that other brand is going to charge them, because they're not in control of a lot of the costs of a bike.
And their hands are also tied about how much stock they have to commit to at the beginning of a season. So for example, let's reluctantly use Polo as the example here. They didn't necessarily think they were going to go under. They're probably sitting on hundreds of forks.
Sure.
That now that they're just sat there in the dirt. So they've invested the money into it initially. Well, there's no guarantee that you're going to sell everything, is there? And that's when we see factory sales and all these kind of crazy discounts, because they're like, a lot of the time they just need to get rid of the stock. But the problem is, a lot of the time, this overstock they can't sell on a website because it's OEM stock, and the agreement and the contract they have with the supplier will be that they can't sell OEM stock on their website super discounted, because it's meant for original equipment.
That's why Chain
manufacture.
Reaction was great. Sometimes you could get a set of Fox 38s and they came in a brown box with
Plastic bag over them, yeah.
Luminous pink decals and something. It was made for a Santa Cruz or something. It never made it to that bike, but you got them at a massive discount.
But that's great. Having the option available is great for that, because some people don't care. You just want the performance.
So throwing it into a different subject, World Cup downhill is starting. I'm actually really excited. I don't get that excited about racing, but I think because it's been off for so long, there's been quite a lot of changes, and it's been on Pink Bike and stuff quite recently. I'm quite excited about it.
I didn't think I would be. I felt a bit flat after last year in terms of how everything went, and there was a lot of riders who were out. But I feel quite hyped for this one. I thought Bill kicking it off.
Did you make a dream team?
I didn't, but I kind of think I know who I'd have on there.
Who would you have on your dream team? Let me get mine up whilst.
Have you actually got yours already done?
Yeah.
Are you,
I don't
first
have
of all,
mine. No,
are
I
you
don't.
excited?
You know what? I know I said at episode 1 of this poddy that I wasn't excited, but I feel like they're kind of, with social media now, I'm feeling it's a bit Love Island vibes. Like I keep seeing all these like, oh, we've got our new kit, and you have like 4 of the race team's riders posing in their new kit, like taking cool photos, taking like Insta reels and stuff, and it's getting me a little bit hyped. I'm thinking like, they're all going to go into Love Island, and
Yeah. You see the Norco factory team with their amazing painted pictures of all the riders on the back of their bus.
That's not what you said.
No,
off
it wasn't.
camera.
I think the best comment I saw on the social media post was poor Greg.
I saw the painting on the back of the bus, right? Is it like what's the style of painting you call that?
expressionism.
There you go.
Did they do? Did you ever see that Cristiano Ronaldo statue?
Yes.
Where
And
they
his
made
face
it
was
look
completely wrong.
terrible.
bus.
Is it like that? Because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the bus. Is it like that?
Bring it up on your laptop
Let's
whilst
do
I
it.
go through my team. So I have in my Pink Bike World Cup Dream Team, I've got Dan Slack.
course you do.
Cool. All right.
Pole
Yeah.
fan.
I've got Oni Rainio,
Oh, God. Come on now.
a bargain at $25,000 each. I've got Amaury Piron,
Okay.
240k.
Yeah.
Charlie Hatton,
Yeah.
who
Cool.
has, proved himself at Fort William. Marine Cabaru. And actually, I've got a rider that is probably not going to be there, so I need to change her out. Hattie Harnden. I don't think she's even racing there.
No, I don't think she's
So
racing.
I need to edit that.
Yeah, here you go. I'll just show you the quick Norco bus.
Oh my lord, that is hideous. Why have they put that on the back of a bus?
It's a different approach. How do they describe it? Sorry, this is just going on at Norco. Celebrate our 60th anniversary. It felt right to elevate the brand by introducing a new look for the team. The Norco race division is made up of world-class riders, mechanics and support staff,
that's
all
enough.
of whom will be featured in a raw and emotional docu-series running throughout the season while bold team look takes inspiration from our heritage and modern street culture.
Modern street culture.
I didn't
So
know
it's
Norco had a tie with modern street culture.
So it's a docu-series. So it is kind of like a Love Island type thing. Is
It's
it?
just Norco.
Maybe I will watch
Norco
it. then.
Island.
Is it going to be drama? Or is it going to be like Big Brother where someone goes off and Greg Menard will go off into a room and have a little strop? Tegan was being horrible to me.
You better hope he's not watching this.
Oh, hi, Greg. Listening.
I'm really looking forward to Fort William, and yeah, it's. I don't even know how you're supposed to watch it. Still, as a mountain bike enthusiast, I have no idea what I need to sign up to, when it's on.
No, I don't know where I'm watching it this year. To be honest,
Do you know when it is?
I'm going to do some promotion for Whitey again, unfortunately. The Whitey Mill. There you go.
Okay.
Whitey Mill, Surrey Hills, and I think the Whitey Mill Forchheim in Germany. You can go and watch it on Sunday the 5th. But I don't know where else to watch it.
That
so for
is
me, I
the
was
day
like,
that this podcast comes out.
yeah,
so.
I know. So
Yeah,
but
but
it doesn't make sense.
But doesn't that show how difficult it is to follow? Like if 3 people that are cycling enthusiasts cannot have no idea when the World Cup downhill is on or how to watch it.
Because last time it was like GCN Plus. I think Discovery Plus is the app that you need. But I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll find out and put it in the comments. But
I wonder if getting a Discovery Plus subscription, it would be cheaper for you to either do that for a year or to save all your money and travel to Fort William to go and watch the race in person.
probably
I don't know how-
I don't know.
My only warning to anyone is if you haven't tried to book a hotel for Fort William for around this race time, you have to do it like a year out.
Oh, really?
It's crazy because there's probably about 5 houses in Fort William, and so everyone books them up straight off the bat.
Take a tent.
Yeah.
Take a tent and camp.
There's also midgies which will eat you alive. So
Well, thanks for watching the latest episode. We made it to 2 episodes, which is good. We've got loads of cups left up there. So that's how we're judging the success of the podcast. Let us know your comments and feedback. We're always open to making this as good as possible. So let us know anything you'd like to see different or anything you like. That'd be cool. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you next Sunday.
See ya.
see ya.